The title of this story is Zoo. I'm ashamed I ever went to a zoo. I don't mean to get overly preachy and up in everybody's face about animal rights, all holy and vegetarian. I'm a flexitarian. I'm all for saving whales and porpoises and the like, but I eat anything you put in front of me. I wear leather. I have worn snake and lizard and most creatures you can make clothing out of. I don't know if it's right to eat them and wear them, but the zoo gets me. I remember the smells in the bars, thick, black smells and bars. It's a prison, a zoo, and I, for one, could never tolerate supervision of any kind. In many ways, I'm not even domesticated. At the zoo as a kid, I'd look at the animals and they toward me through their deleted eyes, pacing and agitated in their wet and barren concrete cells. People outside ooh and ah, laugh and point, and sometimes taunt or throw scraps of food to the once free. I'm ashamed I was ever there, and that my parents patronized the apartheid. Now, okay, I say apartheid because all the while the ants and the flies and the birds in the trees and the squirrels were apparently free, while nature's rare masterpieces were in prison, going mad with compulsion and confinement and depression, unable to get the message to their keepers. Not that it would matter much. And not that ants and flies, birds and squirrels don't deserve as much credit and respect. I'm just mentioning them because, let's face it, the color-splashed parrots from vast and distant jungles are in cages, while wrens and sparrows, crows and robins just flit about all around them. Where's the justice in that? Where's the justice when a blue jay, a known crook and career criminal, can enter and exit your cage with impunity? How do you handle that when you're a hostage in a box while all around you the pulse of natural life teems with boundless joy and bodily freedom? When it used to be that your flight and sex were free, when you glided and played, slept and pursued and did what you were meant to do, wherever you wanted to. I'm ashamed. How do you get a message to your keepers anyway? And exactly whom do these creatures depend on? Well, the most poor, least educated. Who else? The ones who end up as the shit shovelers. They shovel shit in the zoo and in the circus. Mostly, I don't think they recognize the pain and suffering, anxiety, depression, illness, and fear in these treasures of the wild. It's just a job. They just have to make do. They have to bear with the bears and the birds. But they gotta hate the shitters. Fucking birdcage, man. Assholes do nothing but shit. Birds, man. And those fucking monkeys, man. And the circus. The circus is some ways even worse than the zoo. There, the prisoners have to dance around and act like fools. They have to put on a show before they're re-incarcerated and transported from town to town, city to city. The clowns, okay, that's one thing. I don't really understand it, but at least it's a choice. It's a paid choice. It's a job. Hell, there's a college for it. Clown College in Florida. You don't see a lot of those rear window decals or bumper stickers, but it's there. So, Clown College, okay, but elephants are no clowns. You have to chain and hurt them, make them dance using a hook on a stick. They could go nuts. They could go off at any time. But no, they just scream and flinch and cry, and eventually they dance instead of wrecking the place, which they could, killing everybody and busting everything up. Then the police would come with automatic weapons and make the news at 11. Helicopters hovering above, filming the mountain of gray flesh on its side, everyone finally relieved. The monster has been dispatched. Thank God. Thank God for the sake of the children. We all still look good. Got things under control. But they're too engaging, too heartful to blow their horns and bring down the walls. Elephants. Hey, elephants have a culture. They deposit their dead in special arenas and visit the remains, apparently mourning them in elaborate rituals even many years later. Elephants physically support old and ill members of their families and herds, walking on either side, leaning against them, propping them up so they're able to continue the journey, to keep up, to stay with, to not abandon. No clowns, elephants. But then, there they are, dancing on one leg and then the other, looking with distant eyes into the memory plains of Botswana, Namibia, the good days, balancing on a colossal ball, now on one leg, while holding the image of freedom in a trunk, to the applause of the children. Discomforting tricks born of pain and punishment, entertainment and gloom contending for audience attention for the ticket price. Tricks, if performed well, may lead to a little solitude and maybe a snack, lead to being left alone and off the hook, left to the quiet memory pools of the burial grounds and the herd and the plains. The shame cuts right through me, and I'm no PETA member, but without at least shame, to me, it's more than criminal. I'm almost done here with this part. Bear with me, please. Just a few more details of complaint. Do not feed the animals. No, heaven forbid. The signs are everywhere. Them's the rules. The posted rules. Don't feed them. Some harm may come to them if they munch on the fried sugar the witnesses in the audience are pounding down. Some harm? Please. Imprisoned for life, but you can't get a snack. Just imagine turning the tables, turning around in our seats away from the three rings or facing away from the iron black bars and looking at us. Just a moment to look at us looking at who we've become. We're elephants without the culture. I'm ashamed to have attended the zoo. So anyway, this story starts when I went back to a zoo after decades to do just that. Decided to turn around and try to see myself, or see the prison of myself. That sounds awfully new age, I know. Be that as it may, I went and saw my beloved elephants there. The baby one, much hairier than I expected, and as if suffering from progeria. Baby elephants have the look of ancient infants, and its mother enormous, and like her offspring, gives no clear sign of emotion, always a leaden face, and yet the eyes, so tender, floating above the unwavering expression. Despite my love, the elephants could not keep me, did not hold a mirror up to me. Perhaps the grandeur of their acquiescence was more than I could bear. Nor could the monkeys hold my attention. Too much like me, I thought, doing whatever comes to mind, speaking in tongues, all the while somehow managing to appear free while behind bars. Illusionists, monkeys. Love them. I can't live with them. Giraffes, very reserved, easy to confuse with being above it all. Seem like they're on dope. They present with the diffidence we often see in the painfully tall or in narcotic fiends. Truly, how does one relate to a giraffe without the aid of a ladder? Sent my best to them, but couldn't stay. I saw birds and boars and a panther who was clearly pissed off, and then I found a lion. An old, depressed lion. Silent, his despondent mane ratty, no longer brushed by thickets or combed by the tongues of lady friends. Something about his potential, or perhaps my imaginings of his past, held me there. He paced slowly, but mostly lay on his side, face turned away from the bars where you could see his massive paws like broken muffins in the trash behind the bakery. He doesn't really look. He may vaguely sense things through the bars. He's mostly dissociated by now, and I stood there in front of him. He noticed, I think, because I stayed, alone and with others, of course, coming and going all day. I stayed, sitting and writing. Stayed for the whole summer, documenting, keeping company, and hoping I might learn something about myself from being there. Some days I was distracted. On a few days, I think I might have cried a little. I think he came to recognize my presence as standard, familiar. I tried everything, speaking, making sounds, meditating towards him, sending him vibes. But finally, I just hung out, and so did he. He stood and paced slowly in his diminutive empire of filth. Calloused patches worn into his coat and covered with sores, falling over onto his side from time to time, defeated, facing away. Now somehow I came to be a worry to the management of the zoo because a man showed up one day. I think some people saw me tearful or something and were concerned that their children would be frightened or endangered. These totally surveilled children. Parents concerned I might have contracted some illness from having breathed too much zoo air, perhaps. Jungle fever. Or wait, okay. Maybe it was the day. Yeah, probably that day on the bench, alone as usual, late morning, thick with sun, but feeling kind of dark and heavy with the weight of some vague sadness and worry upon me about age and loss and what's what and who's who. About feeling lonely that summer, serving time in my own conceptual prison cell. For some reason, feeling especially lonely, being surrounded by so many who think, who believe beyond doubt, that life is a meaningful affair, and everything happens for a reason, that there's a purpose to life, where I was purposeless, feeling that everything was relative, qualified, virtual, and as for belief, believed only that there is nothing out there to believe in. So there on the bench in the sun I sat, living my meaningless, purposeless, atheistic existence, just trying to breathe in and out this sad, insane, and beautiful world. When just then, a great gust of wind blew a straw hat off the head of a woman walking, clutching a large bag to her breast, and she said, "Oh!" as it sailed spinning aloft for a few moments like a B-movie UFO and landed softly on the grass 15 feet behind her. I sat still, watching that scene in its utter uniqueness, in its debut and final performance. That's where I think I might have cried for a few moments. Weird tears, joy-like tears perhaps, and felt the possibility that day that I could be free. There you go, free, crying at the drop of a hat. I saw everything in that moment. Something happened where I saw the world in the proverbial mustard seed. Then and there, I woke up in that moment, and everything changed. The immediacy and uniqueness of everything was irreducibly clear. A switch was thrown. I cannot emphasize this enough. Everything changed. I found and lost myself at once. Felt I knew everything and nothing, which seemed right then to be exactly the same. Saw the connections. felt the attendant joy, felt aware of a profound humility and the bliss of life and death, took pleasure in each blade of grass like Uncle Walt, woke as if from a dream, and exhausted is the way we wake at first, but then found limitless energy. Later, some people said I had been manic that day. The kinder ones said that I was overly enthusiastic about ideas. What did they know? I became like a sieve. Wasn't trying to block anything out, didn't feel as if I was holding anything in, felt as though I was completely present and not there at all. I felt that things could just pass through me, like a sieve. I began that day godless, purposeless, heartbroken, and then I couldn't have been happier, filled with a light. Purpose and meaning were clear and right here and right now. And then I guess I just went and scaled a 5-foot wrought iron fence which formed a barrier around the lion's cage, and grabbed hold of his bars, my face pressed into the space between them. He rose from his own dream and walked slowly to where I was standing, his gigantic face 5 feet from mine. I was calm. He moved closer. I felt his burning breath. He could have easily roared, swiped at me, and he would have had me. But he didn't do any of that. He stared at me, and I at him. We were talking. We were feeding. We were united. It was more than I could have imagined. I was unafraid and fully absorbed in our connection. A few minutes later, I climbed back and went over to the bench. Someone must have complained, must have made a report. Someone of our precious and endlessly helpful suburbanites who sense danger and potential abuse in all signs of public emotion, in every hint of impropriety, in every broken rule, in even a scintilla of inappropriate behavior. And so a man came. "Sir," he said, "can I help you?" There's a kind of formality and even superiority to his tone of voice, kind of "I'm in charge here at the zoo" tone. I looked over at him, a bit surprised, having been undisturbed there for weeks. No thanks," I replied. "Help me? Why?" "Well," said the man, who I noticed was wearing a zoo suit, and this was not a shit shoveler suit, this was an official one. "Well," he said again, "you've been here quite a bit this summer, and we appreciate your patronage." Now that almost killed me. I thought he was going to present me with an attendance prize. But I was wondering if everything was all right. "Oh, yes, everything's all right. I'm just here with the lion because, I don't really know why. I got a lot of time off right now, and I'd like to visit him." "I see," he said, a little like the way you respond to a person who just made no sense, or someone you're concerned about. He said, "I see," like that. So I turned toward Lazar. That's the name I gave the lion, Lazar. I think he liked it, but who knows with lions. "And here, you got to know, I'm still in quite a twirl. I'm spinning. I just got a glimpse of some kind of spooky light or whatever. I don't know what's up, or even who I am. Even though I had no illusions about Lazar, I knew he'd grab me with those muffin paws of his, kill me, and then eat me in a dizzying, slick, and sticky blur if he could just get out from behind those bars. He'd go for anything he could, so pent up, but playing like he's done with it all, like he's over it. No siree. I knew Lazar had mayhem on his mind and was just biding his time, waiting on the day when he could get his choppers into somebody, and that was all fine with me. "Let me out of this cage, man. Let me out of this nasty piece of shit cage. Don't you know who I am? I was a prince, soon to be a king." That's what he was saying in his head, pacing around and whatnot, just acting depressed, playing the mental illness card till he could get somebody. anybody. So I looked over to Lazar, and damn if he hadn't perked up when the guy was talking to me, standing all the way up, facing straight into the bars, looking right at us. I was happy to see him like that again. And then I turned back to the suit, and well, I could only see the back of it because he just left, I guess, and he was off a ways, walking briskly in the heat toward the main building. I must have been staring at Lazar for longer than I realized because I think I heard the guy talking or asking some questions, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't all there, so I don't know. Lazar went right back down, momentary interest only. Still, though, a spark of hope appeared in the kingdom of hunger and doom. I continued sitting on the bench, outside the cage, trying to write down the conversation I just had with the guy. I wasn't getting anywhere, couldn't focus at all, and then another zoo guy, a guard, showed up. Zoo Security, it said on his badge. He was businessy. He said, "Hello, sir." I said hi back to him, and he handed me an envelope, which I opened. In it I found a zoo check for $6, the general admission price. "What's this for?" I asked. He said, "The management would appreciate it if you would leave the grounds, sir." Leave? Why? "Because, sir, it's been reported you're disturbing to the other patrons and animals." Other? Lazar? I said, and looked over at the cage, and damn if he wasn't up again, watching the show. "Excuse me?" says the zoo cop, and you know how he said it. "Excuse me?" Like that, like he's talking to a nut job. "Lazar," I said, "the lion," motioning to him. "He's not Laser or whatever you said, sir. The lion's name is Borneo." "Oh, Borneo," I responded with great interest, having learned his prison name. "Ah, like the wild man." "What, sir?" "Like the wild man of Borneo. And by the way, you don't have to keep calling me sir. He used sir like a weapon, like it had a point on it. It began to anger and depress me. Right about then, I just wanted to take that word out of his mouth and stick it in his eye. "Yes, Borneo, it would be for the best if you left immediately, sir." Now see, I didn't like him blatantly using the sir word again right after I asked him not to, so I handed him the check back, but he wouldn't touch it, so I let it fall to the ground, and it floated in the fat, hot breeze a few feet away. I watched it sail for a moment, and said, looking right at him, "I don't want it back. I paid, and I'm planning to stay. If you don't want me here, don't sell me a ticket the next time, and we'll deal with it then, okay?" He reached over, snapped up the check. "Sir, I will have to get the Stoneham police if you don't leave." "Right," I said, and here I'm thinking, no way he's going to get the cops. I'm not doing anything wrong. This is a free country. I paid for my ticket. He walked off in the direction of the main building while speaking into the device he had clipped to his collar, and for a second I thought maybe something was actually going to go down. A few patrons were milling around watching. Some were clutching their children, but nobody said anything to me. Lazar was all over it, though. It was a sight to behold. It was like he got infused with a current of energy, like he'd just eaten a bush of catnip. Like he caught a glimpse of the promised land, like something in him woke up along with me. He was up. Man, was he up. I mean, his mane was puffed out, his chest wide, his eyes sharp and clear, his mouth hung open, and his breathing audible. I smiled at him. We were talking again. So I decide Lazar's into it, and I'm taking a stand here. Finally, a cause I can believe in since Vietnam. And I'm taking it on, period. If not here, where? If not now, when? And all that. I was pumped. I had found meaning in the moment, and I'm thinking, maybe this is why I came to the damn zoo. Lazar was really feeling me. More juice coming out of him than in the entire summer combined. I started feeling stronger right along with him. I got jungle fever, he's got jungle fever, we got jungle fever, we're in love. Stevie Wonder had just written the soundtrack for this scene. Now, I'm half crazy, mad with excitement, a rush of energy like I've never felt. Whitman tells me, take your hat off to nothing known or unknown, affirming to myself, I give no one authority over me, not the police, certainly not the zoo police, not the military, not the government, not the church, not God, not women, not men, nor do I give authority over to the wealthy, the famous, the great, or the powerful. Now I'm pumped. My heart is pounding to beat the band while I proclaim to myself that I am my own authority. If I'm not the author of myself, then who can be? I stand for myself. Yeah, power to the people! Sorry. Every once in a while I revisit that day and the force comes back. So, 7 or 8 minutes later, 2 uniformed Stoneham cops show up. Shit shovelers themselves, and guess who's the shit? The zoo security man is with them because you got to ID the perpetrator, And they asked me to leave, and here I had enormous clarity. Clarity from that spooky light, which still shone a bit. I don't refuse them, but instead begin a dialogue with them based on a short story I once read by Herman Melville entitled Bartleby the Scrivener, who was the ultimate in passive resistance. Just being a sieve, letting it all pass through. Old Bartleby trumped Gandhi on this count all day, every day. Here, with the cops, it's amazing, because right then, Lazar growls and yells and takes a swipe at the bars near where the zoo guard is standing, and the guard jumps back. Man, he rang those bars like harp strings when he hit them. Gives you some idea of what's up with a full-grown male lion. Bodies 10 feet long, tails 3 feet long, 600 pounds. The cops flinch, duck, and put their hands on their weapons. Then the zoo guy said the lion was being agitated by me. By me! And that's just one of the reasons they needed me off the property. Plus littering. Littering, for cry-eye, because I threw the damn check on the ground. What bullshit. I knew what was up with Lazar. He had taken me on like a friend, like I was part of his pride. He knew my smells and sounds, and that I was good people. He was coming to my aid best he could. And I know sure as shit that if he got out right then, he'd have killed me last, because he liked me. I smiled at him again. He looked at me like he was saying, if you let me out, my brother, I let you live while I mess up these sons of bitches. But then, my friend, truly, I might have to go and get you too. I'm a lion after all. It's just the way I am. No offense, my friend. And I got it. I respected him for keeping it real. Eventually, they put me behind my own bars for resisting arrest, which I did not. I just kept saying I'd prefer not to, just like old Bartleby the Scrivener. The cops would say, will you leave the zoo? And I'd say, I would prefer not to. And they'd say, then you're going to have to come with us. And I'd say, well, I'd prefer not to do that. And they'd say, are you resisting arrest, sir? And I'd say, no, not at all. I would just prefer not to go with you. And they'd say, that's resisting. And I'd say, not really. I'm not saying no, and I feel an impulse to comply with you. I just need to make it known that I would prefer not to. Just my preference. Just voicing it. And they'd say, that's fine, sir, that you want to express yourself, but we're going to have to place you under arrest if you don't leave the grounds on your own right now. I stood there, bathed in the sublime light of all the freedom fighters and anarchists of history, in the light of all of those who have battled superior forces. And then one cop said, please put your hands behind your back, sir. And I went into, I prefer not to, and this went on and on. Prefer not to walk to the police vehicle, prefer not to get into the vehicle, prefer not to be driven in a vehicle without the use of my hands for safety reasons, etc., etc. All the while doing each and every behavior against my preference. So that it took nearly 45 minutes for them to get me to the station, which was only a mile or so away, and I might add, without any physical struggle whatsoever. Then from there, it was remove your shoelaces, prefer not to, remove your belt, prefer not to. I mean, I was a beautifully royal pain in the ass. Strategic, literary-based passive aggression. And so, I got caged. Being behind bars was the least I could do. Civil disobedience in the name of the innocent and the oppressed. My lawyer got me out a couple hours later, and we sued the Stoneham Zoo, $792. I figured $72 for the tickets I purchased that summer, plus 10 times that for pain and suffering. My attorney thought I was a long shot. I got offered $66 from the zoo to settle out of court. That was the $72 I spent on tickets, minus the $6 they already offered to return to me, which I refused. I took the offer. I learned things from the zoo. I learned that in the most important ways, no one could imprison me but myself. Imprison us but ourselves. I learned that often, no matter our preferences, we're not free. Not the people from the zoo, not the cops, not the spectators or the prisoners, not the clowns or the elephants, neither parrots nor panthers, not even me anymore. Nobody's free. As long as we keep being this way to one another and to ourselves, being in a dream, lost in thought, imagining the dream is real. I know this isn't making a lot of sense. See, I never took the meds, the lithium, which had been highly recommended. The doc told me I'd have a better chance of being understood if I took them. Oh well. So I guess I found what I was looking for. I turned around and saw myself, with the help of Lazar, and was strengthened to take a stand, repent for past sins, make up for my apathetic history, found the truth and beauty available in the moment. I found the freedom spot, at least for a while. I know it's there now. And Lazar, he got to roar and feel he was still alive in that box. And so, despite the posted rules, the animals got fed. I imagined that he looked for me in the following days, and I felt bad about not visiting. But I knew they wouldn't let me back in, and I'd have to go through the Bartleby routine with the cops, which I really wouldn't enjoy so much the second time around, I don't think. Lazar is still there, as far as I know, his paws and jaws restless until he is allowed to pass through those bars by death. And until then, although he'd prefer not to, he remains.